I'd like to call the regular council meeting of June 8th to order. First on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Councillor Brown, Councillor Sullivan, all in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Spruill, all in favor? Carried. We have no delegations today, no unfinished business. We have correspondence, and the letter is from the Comox Valley Regional District. And so there is a motion there, or is there any questions?
I have questions.
Yes.
So the application was submitted on February 28th. So just noting that it's coming to us on June. So already well underway. It also doesn't clarify which stream they applied under. So whether it's stream 1 or stream 2. The first one is plan. The second one is more activity, I think. And I would actually love to see the application before we say, sure, yeah, that looks good. And I'd also like to see who's participating on our behalf. Who sits on the Regional Growth Strategy Technical Advisory Committee on Cumberland's behalf. Yeah, those are a few of my questions.
Yes, Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, so I think I'm correct in that we already approved this, and that that UBCM had come back with the need for more specific wording around the grant application, around the motions that we had originally sent out. So we're seeing this for the second time with adjusted wording around, I think, the final paragraph there around the CVRD serving as the primary applicant. Is that correct, Clayton?
Yeah. Yes, through your worship. Yeah. So this item is just coming back to council due to an updated wording in the resolution there. So this was the item that had been, I believe it was either last council meeting or 2 council meetings before, where the entire package had been provided before. So they requested an update to the language UBCM. When it was submitted, there was an update to the actual wording that was required.
Okay, so does anybody remember which stream they applied under and who sits on the Technical Advisory Committee for Cumberland? We have that information?
Yeah, so our planner a senior planner sits on the Technical Advisory Committee as part of the regional growth. But the actual stream, I don't have in front of me, but we can get that information there. I can't recall exactly which one that was. We can certainly find out here.
Yeah, I believe it was the first stream, but yeah.
So it's just the plan at this point. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, someone like to move the motion?
I'll move that council provide support for the Comox Valley Regional District to apply for, receive, and manage the UBCM Poverty Reduction Strategy grant funding on the Village of Cumberland's behalf.
Seconder? Councillor Sullivan, all in favor? Carried. Next, we have recommend that council receive the COVID-19 response activities report with financial implications. Councillor Spruill, Councillor Sullivan, all in favor?
Are we off? We're out of sync with our agenda.
That's not what's next.
Are we waiting for a planner?
No, just a minute. Oh, sorry, I went to jump to the next one instead. It was out of sync. Okay, recommend that council receive the report application development variance permit 2814 Desmere Avenue dated May 25th.
Mover,
I'll
second.
move. Second.
Seconder, all in favor? Carried. I hope Rachel made that back to do that.
All right, your worship, I believe our senior planner is on here. I'm just not sure
Okay.
if her video or if it's, if she is by telephone here. So we'll just confirm if. Oh, something's coming up here. One
Yes,
second.
she's
There
on
she
now.
is. There
Yeah.
she is. Thank you.
Okay, welcome Karen, you're on.
Your sound's not working.
I can't hear her.
Okay. Karen, can you check your sound there? No.
No. Yeah, there you go. Try it again.
We're having.
No, no sound.
Sometimes when you have them
Yeah.
have headphones, it messes with the microphone.
Yeah.
So maybe try it without headphones.
Seems like she can hear us, but sorry about this.
It's doing something different than last time because last time she was very clear.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so she's gonna phone in. Would it be possible, your worship, maybe we move to one of the items that is not relating to the senior planner and let her.
so let's
phone
go
in? Is it-
down to 6.3 then, which is the solid waste. That's still planning, isn't it?
Yeah.
but that's
Did you-
Joanne, is it not?
Yeah, correct. We could try 6.4 there, which is the COVID update.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
Oh, maybe that was a premonition that
we-
something was gonna go wrong.
We
You're
we were-
right all along.
we were bound to have technical difficulties at some point in time, I guess.
Yes.
So,
Okay, I'll recommend that council receive the COVID-19 response activities report with financial implications. Councillor Brown and Councillor Kettler. All in favor? Carried. And that starts on page 47.
okay,
43.
43, yeah. Thank you, your worship. I also, I will just ask to join me in a moment here, our chief financial officer. But what I'll just start out by just giving council a quick update on the latest relating to the COVID response and our recovery plan. And so a few updates to note this period here is we have continued to move towards some reopening plans. We've started out with our safety plan, updated our safety plan within our organization. So staff have been working with our safety committee and other stakeholders to implement an update of safety plan that would allow us to complete and fulfill the requirements that we have through WorkSafe and other legislative requirements relating to reopening. So these type of things are making sure that our site is available for our staff to come. Some staff are still working from home, but we are starting to move towards more staff that are able to be working on site. We have also, and I'll let our chief financial officer talk about some of the financial updates, but we have opened up this past week and allowed in-person payment of taxes. And so that's something that she'll be able to report on in a moment here. Our main focus right now has been working towards finalizing some different scenarios for how we'd be able to reopen the rec center, fitness center, as well as the village office. There is still a lot of information that we're gathering and we're receiving, and we're working collaboratively with the region there to determine what that will look like. But certainly our biggest challenge is, some of our spaces are not really suitable for having the public access. So for example, the front of the village office. So there's some plans that we're looking at, and some of them we're testing out with our taxation, our tax collection, and that includes, by appointment. If someone has a need to meet, they can make an appointment. So we're just putting those plans into place and setting up a way that we can do that. But definitely we're going to have to do some improvements to the facility here to be able to accommodate and meet the requirements within the within our safety plan and WorkSafe. But what we will be doing is I believe probably on the 22nd, we'll be bringing a little bit more of a detailed report to council relating to what that reopening looks like and when we can look at allowing the public into some of the buildings there. Just so you know, I think there's some facilities on Vancouver Island that have reopened, very limited access, some by appointment only, some just for certain services. But I'd say the majority of municipalities have some or many restrictions relating to access into the spaces that we're managing. However, saying that, most of our services are still operating as normal, the best that they possibly can, through either online, over the phone, by email. So far things have been working and running, but at the same point in time, we're beginning the process of putting some plans in how we can open. But there's a lot of work still left to do that. So we will report back on that. So if that's okay, I'll just pass over to our Chief Financial Officer and just let her speak to some of the financial impacts, a section there, and then we're happy to answer any questions relating to that if there are any. So.
Okay, through the mayor. So the report outlines on page 45 some of the financial impacts that the villages has seen due to COVID. So in the financial services section, there of course is a reduction in our interest revenue, our general interest revenue that we would receive that usually helps us towards general revenues. There would also be a reduction in your interest revenues in your reserve funds as well because of that. We did manage to lock in some term deposits last year, so they won't end until August, which they have a bit of a higher interest rate. It's just the shorter cash flow terms so far, and then once we reinvest some of those matured investments, that's when we'll start to see some low interest rates again as well. The other costs were to do with information technology. We had to turn things around really quickly, put some teleconferencing in place, remote desktop, that kind of stuff. And so those are costs, and without understanding whether or not we're going to be approved to have those reimbursed yet, at this moment, those are costs without a revenue covered. In the development services, we're estimating that we're going to see a reduction in the revenue based on some delays in some of the development applications coming in. So, if the subdivision doesn't come into the office, then of course all the other application revenue will also be delayed for those types of revenues. And then that, though, of course, is net savings. We had budgeted for some extra help in that department, which we didn't bring in due to COVID because we chose not to. So we have some net there. Recreation, parks, and culture, they also have a reduction in their revenues that they're estimating due to closure. And so they analyze their revenues based on what they think may occur over the next few months. So we'll revisit these estimates again come the fall, and if they need to be updated to you, they will. But if we're on target, then that'll be it. And then they had a few things like some of the events didn't go through, the Easter egg hunt and things like that. So there was some savings there because of the COVID. They had also some costs in labor because, of course, if you don't have your programs running, then you won't have the instructor costs, things like that. So direct labor costs. So all in total, though, the impact that we're estimating that COVID will have on the village is just over $80,000. And so then we went forward and we analyzed our operations to see what we could do about saving some money to offset those losses. And so we actually, we found just over $76,000 in extra, in either savings or extra money. So some of the more to note, larger ones to note is that we will have some unexpected sale of some surplus assets in public works. So we're gonna advertise those for sale and hopefully we'll get what we estimate back from there. And then we also delayed the start of the summer student, both summer students. So one is now on working, and then the other one will start in July. So that's helped out with the savings. And also everybody has looked at their training and travel, and because of course nobody's really traveling that much for their training, we felt like we could save 50% of our training and travel budget to put towards offsetting those extra costs. So the way it boils down is that we probably have at this point just an overage of just over $4,000, which is quite manageable. And so we're not very worried about that. And and of course any reimbursements from EMBC will also come into play, and then that will help out as well. But at this point, we're not; those are unknown. And then we're also going to review our capital projects and possibly come back to at a different council meeting. And to
So just to add to that, thank you. So these are just estimates based on what we have been able to analyze based on the last couple months, with also some projections that we're estimating over the next few months there. So they're certainly, like our financial officers mentioning, that we think that they're manageable at this point in time, and there's not going to be any impact on services. And we're happy to be able to continue the operation. And certainly if there are any changes that would impact those services, we'll report back to council and seek some direction at that time. But again, these are estimates right now. We're still starting to find out what money we may be receiving, like was mentioned, through our emergency response through the province, in the sense of what amount would be provided. And that's for things even such as our Zoom membership here to allow us to do these services, to some of our overtime through the bylaw officer. So there is definitely some that we've confirmed that there is some definitely recoverable, and there's some that we have submitted that we're waiting to hear if it is recoverable. And we have submitted some that we have heard back that are not recoverable, but for the most part, we are receiving some funding back for some of the response that we've had during this period. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, I just have a comment in saying that thanks for acting so quickly. I think that staff did a great job in responding to COVID, and actually in doing that saved us money. And so the damage is not so great. And you did a great job of communicating, and especially coming into the job new, Clayton, and having such a tumultuous start. I just really wanted to say that you did well, and the rest of the staff as well. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you very much. And there is there's no blueprint for this, and really one of the things that is we're really lucky here is the team immediately we sat around and really talked about things like what could be done to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation where we're going to have to be reactive. And so we really tried out of the gate to be a little more proactive. We still have a lot of work left to do. So don't get me wrong. There's a lot of, one of them is a later item today about how we're going to respond and make sure that council is we can manage this. But in general terms, everyone, all staff here have been extremely supportive of trying to adapt and adjust. And it's really, I think they really realize, the staff realizes that this is an item that is across all, individuals in our community. And so we're trying our best to manage this the best we can. And we'll continue. If there's other savings, we'll look at those as long as they don't impact the services. And if they do, we'll make sure council's aware and we can adjust that, through getting direction from council. So. Okay.
I've relayed that message to all the staff that are working, how appreciative council is to each and every one of them, because they did have some moments, as we all did. But I'd also like to thank council for their support of staff through this. It's not been an easy experience to go through, and it's been a hardship on many people. So thank you very much to everybody for all your hard work. Okay, so do we have a solution to Karen?
I'm here.
You are here now. Okay, so I will recommend that council receive the report application development variance permit 2814 Dunsmuir Avenue dated May 25th. Councillor Brown, Councillor Kettler, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is fairly short, and if you have any questions, I'm here. I'm here. You may recognize the applicant, by the way.
Yeah. Can I go ahead with my question?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. I'm just curious about the, I don't know how, I didn't do the math on the lot, but that still with the subdivision, it's still under 40% lot coverage?
Okay, I just heard Joanne, so I'm confused.
Yes.
Can you just, sorry,
So the variance for, or the application for 2814 from the
yeah,
Stockens.
okay.
Yeah, so I'm just asking about the lot coverage. Does that still stand that it has to be under 40% once you subdivide that lot, both lots?
Yeah, the 40% then just applies to the new lots. Sorry, I'm getting two sounds here. I heard Joanne also on the line, so I don't know if she's also phoning in.
No, you're on the agenda as speaking on this
Okay,
application.
sorry, I heard Joanne's voice, so I thought she was talking to it. So, sorry, that's confusing. Yes, let me just find my way here. I had to, Zoom didn't allow me in because it hadn't updated the app, apparently, so. Yeah, so the lot coverage would apply to the new lots as well. So if it's 40% of the parent lot, then once you subdivide, 40% of each of the new lots. Was that the question? Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Somebody like to make the motion then?
So I will move that council refer the application for development variance permit 2814 Dunsmuir Avenue for property legally described as Lot 1, Block 27, District Lot 21, Nelson District, Plan 522C to the next meeting of the Advisory Planning Commission.
Seconder, Councillor Spruill, all in favor? Carried. Next, recommend that council receive development variance permit 21 Dunsmuir Avenue report dated May 26th. Councillor Kettler and Councillor Sullivan. All in favor? Carried. That's you again, Karen.
Yeah, so this is an application for a variance to vary a setback for a rebuild of a building that burned down on Dunsmuir Avenue. So the owners actually want to build on the existing footprint, on the previous footprint of the building, but they have to apply for variance because the zoning bylaw requirement is still for a 3-meter setback. And if the entire building burns down, you have to then rebuild to what's in the zoning bylaw. So they were required to apply for variance for this, for their rebuild. And in this case, there have been previous discussions with the Committee of the Whole about the setbacks on Dunsmuir Avenue. Staff, where there was a desire expressed by a Committee of the Whole to work to reconcile the zoning bylaw with the statement of significance for Dunsmuir Avenue, which would mean reducing the setbacks. Based on that, staff is recommending approval of this variance without prior referral to the APC, so that the applicant, who is now living somewhere for rent or an alternate living arrangements, can proceed and rebuild. The staff did receive one comment. All the neighbors were mailed a notice about this application. One neighbor did respond and say they was supportive of the variance application.
Any questions? Councillor Spruill?
Ready. Yeah, I am happy to see that recommendation of staff that there has been a delay, and it wasn't through the fault of the village of Cumberland, but I think the person who is helping with the build somehow. Anyway, there's been a lot of holdups on this. I know the family has been squished in a tiny house, and they really wanted to have the reduced setback to be as the footprint of their house. So they requested that, and I do support this not going to the APC just because time is of the essence.
Okay. Anyone else want to make a comment? I certainly support it. I think that's the proper direction to be going in. Yes, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I appreciate that it's that we're not being asked to refer to APC as well. I'm not sure whether they'll get our minutes anyway. So, and I am very much looking forward to aligning this so that people don't have to apply for variances anymore. So I'll move that we approve the application 2020-05 DV for a development variance permit on property described as lot 59, district lot 24, Nelson District Plan 13640, 2521 Dunsmuir Avenue, substantially in compliance with the attached development variance permit dated June 8th, 2020.
Seconder, Councillor Sullivan. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have recommended council receive the development permit, Comox Valley Regional District, Comox Valley Waste Management Center Recycling Building Report dated May 28th.
Yeah.
Councillor Spruill, Councillor Sullivan, all in favor? Carried. Is that
so
you?
This,
Yes, go ahead, Karen.
yeah. So this application is for an industrial development permit for a new recycling depot center at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center. Just basically more or less where the current recycling drop-off is. So as part of the requirements, there was actually, the industrial DP and also an urban wildfire interface DP were required. The applicant has met all the requirements, is meeting all the requirements of the two development permits. So staff recommend granting the DPs to both DPs to the applicant. We are in this case. There's no neighbors, no immediate neighbors to the center. So, if we did send out a notice, but it's a forest company, so no comments were received. So since impact is expected to be not non-existent on any neighbors, again, we are recommending not to send this to the APC. Again, we're catching up a little bit on applications that were put in during when we were uncertain what we could do and hold meetings during the COVID times. So since there's no potential neighbor implications, again, and the applicants are interested in getting started in construction, we are recommending approving these 2 DPs.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
I'm a bit confused by the, so it looks like there are 2 buildings being placed. Is one of them already there? And that's why it's not really discussed, because the only discussion is around the building number 2, I believe, which is right next to that forested area. So
Yeah, so
help me out.
yes. Yeah, the new building is the one that's going to be the roughly where the recycling depot currently sits and is closer to the forested area. That's right. And the other one is an office building. But when they applied for their DP, they had to look at both buildings. The other one is just a small office building, so they had to apply for both structures.
Okay. And so can I follow up?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know if they're taking out trees or they're leaving the trees and just managing them for the urban wildfire interface?
My understanding is that they have a setback of 10 meters, so they don't have to remove any trees.
Great.
So the building will be constructed 10 meters away from the existing electric fence, and there's no vegetation in front of the fence inside the fenced area.
Okay, and we are requiring them to clean up the broom that's in there. I noticed that is included in Strategic's report. Do we need to name that, or are they going to do it because it's in Strategic's report?
Oh, okay. They're supposed to reduce the ladder fuels within the 30 meters to reduce the hazard levels. So there says trees. Joanne worked on this, and I'm looking at the permit. It said trees. But yeah, obviously, broom is a fire hazard potentially too. Does that need to be specified?
It addresses it in the report, saying that the broom will be managed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one of the conditions.
That be removed.
Yeah, and one of the conditions in the permit, actually, 3I, is that they will remove there won't be vegetation within 20 or 30 meter radius from the building.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Someone like to? Yes, Councillor Spruill. Your microphone, please.
Yeah, I'm just interested at the beginning of Strategic's report on the site overview, talking about the 2 structures. One will have non-flammable products, and the other will be storing flammable products. It says design has not been finalized, but may become a metal structure. Do we not have a say in whether? Because it seems to me that metal would be more appropriate for a flammable store place. Do we have a say in that?
I really don't know. I haven't been part of those discussions. Design, yeah,
Your
I
worship,
don't know if they plan
just-
to use a metal structure. Yeah.
So, Your Worship, so one item is and the data, this has been obviously a project that's been underway for a little while. So the data on the strategic report is actually, you can see, is a couple of years ago. And so that information relating to the actual design is something that they've been working on. So that's why it's been defined a little clearer, more in the more recent period here. So some of those items relating to the strategic, they didn't know my understanding is they didn't know the actual design of the building at the time though. So
Okay.
hopefully that.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody like to make the motion to approve?
Sure, I will. I'll recommend the council approve the application for a development permit 2020-02 DP Comox Valley Regional District, Comox Valley Waste Management Center, recycling building on property described as Lot A, sections 26, 27, 34, and 35, Township 10, Comox District, Plan EPP 41201, 3699 Bevan Road, substantially in compliance with the development permit dated May 28, 2020. And that council will waive the requirement for a neighborhood public meeting for the development.
Seconder, Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. Next, we have a report from Clayton Poston, Chief Administrative Officer, on the safety of reopening the policy statement. Councillor
Thank you.
Kettler and Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just before council is a report, and this is a report based on some recommendations from our a number of agencies, but specifically Municipal Insurance Association, and the importance of for the organization and the village to have a policy statement that really outlines exactly some of the direction that we are going in the sense of the health and safety of both the staff as well as obviously all of our community or residents that may visit some of our facilities there. So it's a general policy statement, and the intent here is just to ensure that we are, as an organization, are aware of some of those legislative responsibilities that that we have in relation to WorkSafe and other means which we are. But it just kind of formalizes that. And this is a baseline that is being used by a number of organizations. I think this particular statement is one also I know the CVRD as well as some of the other local organizations are using to just set out a framework for us as we move into our updating our safety plans. And it's just what they're calling good practice for us to have these policy statements. So I don't know if there's really, there'll be more information that will accompany this down the road, but right now it's just to ensure that we're all understanding some of our responsibilities and what our commitments are. So I don't know if there's any questions relating to it or.
That was very clearly spelled out, and I think it gives us the staff of some leadway and direction. So does somebody want to read that?
I will.
Okay, go for it.
All right. We'll move the council adopt the following policy statement. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on the village's ability to effectively deliver programs and services and has resulted in the closure of village facilities. And whereas the village is committed to the safety, health, and well-being of its employees and the general public, therefore be it resolved that Village of Cumberland facilities and services which were closed or had service adjustments as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic will be reopened in alignment with the recommendations, advice, and guidelines issued by WorkSafe BC, the BC Centre for Disease Control, and the Ministry of Health for BC. And further that any reopenings be supported by safety plans, safe work procedures, signage, and internal and external communication to promote public safety and responsible operations. And finally, that the Village of Cumberland remains responsive to changing conditions associated with COVID-19, such that future facility closures occur where required.
Bravo.
Seconder, Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. Next, recommend that council receive the council meeting adaptions in response to COVID-19 report. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. Okay,
Thank you. With the phase transition into COVID-19 recovery, and with the withdrawal of the Shaw TV service, we've got an opportunity to continue to provide live and recorded video of council meetings. And as we shift into the COVID recovery, we should be prepared to do so for in-person council meetings. We've got some preliminary budget estimates for this work, and as expected, it's quite costly for the quality that we need to have to make sure people can hear and see council meetings sufficiently. And those budget estimates are between $10,000 and $15,000, and it's probably leaning more towards the $15,000 range for a commercial grade system. One thing to keep in mind, and that would be for the council chamber, and one thing to keep in mind as we continue with the COVID-19 pandemic, there is very limited seating in the council chamber, so we would still have to encourage the public to watch by video when we continue the question period capability with the email. But council would be able to meet in period in the room with very limited public there. Another aspect that we've been looking at is the requirements to have public hearings for land use designation changes, and that creates a bit of a more complicated situation and more tech requirements to have a larger facility. And with those additional tech requirements for a portable system in a larger facility, there's additional costs. So because just having the council chamber costs at $15,000, we're looking at for the time being just a simpler option of having a larger space for public hearings if we need to have them, and perhaps using Cumberland Recreation or the cultural center to reduce costs for those meetings rather than having a temporary system. But we're still going to explore options on that one. But for the time being, we're just focusing on the council chamber and getting that set up for video. Another component that we've looked at is a new council table setup. The tables are quite old and they're quite large and they don't move around very well. So we're looking at one that would be on with perhaps smaller tables that would be on casters, that we could be more adaptable for different meeting scenarios, and that we can adjust the spacing a little easier during COVID. And another thing we're looking at is moving the staff away from the head of the table and having the chief administrative officer and the corporate officer sitting at the foot of the table, facing council. So a budget estimate of that is a new table system is $10,000, and that includes all tables and for council and staff. And in your agenda, there's a couple of layouts. We've conceptual layouts that we're hoping if council wants to go ahead with a new table system, that we could hear some feedback from you. If you like, there's a V layout where council members really face themselves, which is very similar to what you have now in the council chamber, or there is a more an open layout where you, rather than face yourself, you face the public. So just like some feedback on that. And so this report basically is we're looking for a budget amendment for that $15,000 for a video system and a $10,000 approval for a council table system.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Is there any way we can sneak some money in for some staff chairs as well?
I think we're going to look for next year, unless you want us to do that now, because I think those would be quite costly as well. We get smaller chairs, so we could, yeah.
They just feel like
no, we definitely need smaller chairs.
Also,
yeah, they are.
Okay. And if I had an opinion, I like the open concept, I think, better.
Okay, Councillor Sproul.
Yeah, I like the second concept, the open one. I have seen the top one, I think Courtney Chamber, and I find it just a bit narrow, you know, like, yeah, I think it's more visible to the gallery when it's spread out like that.
Councillor Kettler. Going around the table.
Okay, yeah, I don't really like change. I like our setup, but yeah, I understand it needs to happen. I kind of like that we face each other and like, so we have like discussions with each other as a group. And when we're open, I think it'd be a little bit difficult to be like speaking to each other, like we projecting to
True.
a crowd that's likely not going to be there because of COVID. So it's a little bit, I don't know. It might be easier though if we were going to be on video to have us spread out, because then you could kind of focus on who's speaking. But I think to facilitate discussion just with council itself, I think the narrower setup is better. But it's going to be changed either way, and so I don't really care.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, change is hard. So yeah, I have heard lots of people say, please don't stop the live streaming. People are really enjoying that it's filmed and that they can go back and watch it later if they can't make it and all that stuff. So I am wholeheartedly supporting moving us into the 21st century. And I really like the fact that we talk to each other as well, but I also think it's really not the best setup. So in terms of the public, and also I think we can adjust it so that we can still kind of look at each other or be able to look at each other, but still be more outward facing. It looks like that or what I'm hearing is the tables we're getting are a little more flexible. So, and we could do, yeah. So I like the second more open layout as well. It's got better flow.
Well, I have pros and cons for each one. But one of the things that I like to remind members of council is when we're talking to each other. We're not talking to the audience. We're talking and discussing with each other. So that's an important part, that we need to be able to see each other very easily when we talk and discuss. The audience has the added benefit of watching us also. The only time that we're really talking to the audience is during question period. And the rest of the time we're supposed to be talking to each other. So I see it can work both ways. I'm not sure, I really don't care for we have a big room. And so I don't like the idea of all being confined in so very close. So maybe it needs to be a little expanded a little bit more. Maybe there's a compromise between the two. And I think
I think we can make that happen.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so we've given them the option of, yes, Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Councillor Brown was saying about the live streaming or the video, though, because that I've had a lot of people say that that's important to them to continue, and so that change I'm good with.
Yeah, I think we all are. I think we've all heard from people that are very supportive of what's going on and how it's working. And it's nice to be able to see it live as it is actually happening, and that they can comment in the meeting. I think that's very important to continue that process. And it will be nice when we get back in the hall if we can still continue that. Yes. Okay, so we need them. Yes?
Sorry, I just had one more question before we leave this. The public hearings, we are able to do those via Zoom or some other technological template as well, yes? So we're not putting them off by not getting this technology.
You can do them with using tech, but it becomes quite complex and challenging to do that. And especially if you combine it with a larger venue, because you can't refuse people at the door. So we're going to have to really explore that in, having it in a larger venue, but also whether or not we can really use any tech at all. We might just have to move to a fully in-person meeting and just make sure that, there's the restrictions in place at the time can accommodate that with physical distancing. I think we've heard of other municipalities that have gone with tech public hearings, and they're very challenging and very difficult to do.
And what I've also been told is we could do the one where people come to the hall and we discuss it, but we can do it over 2 nights. If there's so many people that want to attend that can't come in, we can do it over another night so that everybody gets the opportunity to speak. So there's all kinds of possibilities that we can look at. Yes, Clayton?
And we can look at renting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to build on that. I think what the corporate officer and myself were talking about was we'd look at a lot of options here that we have that flexibility, so that if we knew there was a public hearing that was going to have a large participant or turnout, then we could look at some other options. If not, we would have a system here set up that would be able to manage what we need to do. So we're trying to be flexible to be able to address any of those. I mean, there's some public hearings that we know probably aren't going to have maybe the turnout that others will, and so we can have that flexibility to do what we need to do, and that's the objective here for sure.
Okay. So would somebody like to make the motion? Councillor Spruill. Your microphone.
Yeah, I'd like to move that council direct staff to proceed with A, purchasing a video conferencing system for the council chamber, and B, purchasing new meeting table system for the council chamber, and that council direct staff bring forward an amendment to the 2020-2024 financial plan bylaw for an expenditure of $25,000 from the Emergency and Public Safety Reserve.
Councillor Brown, second. All in favor? Carried. Next, bylaws. We're going to recommend that council receive the zoning amendment bylaw number 1133, 2020, housekeeping and other updates. Councillor Spruill, Councillor Kettler, all in favor? Carried. Karen's back on again. Hi, Karen,
Yes.
you're back on with the
Hi.
zoning amendment.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so this bylaw has been in process for a little while. It has. This is the first time you see a complete draft bylaw. The initial housekeeping amendments that we were proposing to update the zoning bylaw and fix some number of definitions, clarify some of the regulations, were initiated last year and did go to the APC earlier this year for comment. Because, hence other updates in the title, there was a couple other items that came forward through resolutions of council to include in the zoning bylaw update, and that was the water bottling as well as the urban beekeeping. So that's included here. There's a lot of changes. The idea with a housekeeping zoning bylaw is that they are just housekeeping, therefore improving clarity of the regulations, adding definitions that might have been missed previously. The amendments don't have an impact or not a noticeable impact on the community. So that's the idea with housekeeping amendments. However, the other updates, so to speak, do the water bottling and the urban beekeeping. So just keep that in mind. So I just want to point out maybe some of the ones that are a little bit more. It may have a bit more of an impact than kind of just a definition clarification items. And then you can ask me any questions you want. They're all included in the table with a rationale of why we proceeded with those updates. So just in terms of a couple of ones that are a little bit bigger, I suppose. One is, and this was discussed before at a council meeting, was a staff recommendation to permit accessory dwelling units in the front yard. There was a request that this be discussed at the APC specifically, which happened, and the APC did make in their minutes noted that they support the amendment to permit accessory dwelling units in the front yard. So staff looked back at previous proposals, and we've never, it has never been denied. So it saves the applicant the variance fee, and there's still a measure of control or oversight, I guess, if you want, over those kind of applications, because they still do also have to get a development permit for the infill area. So these applications would still come to you, but not for the variance in the front yard, but just for the meeting the development permit requirements. So yes, the APC felt that whether they're in front yard or the backyard, they could, if as long as the DP requirements were met, they could be made to blend into the neighborhood. So that was one of the items. That's a little bit more that we've already discussed. It's a bit bigger. Then I also want to draw your attention to the water and beverage bottling amendment. So that was discussed as a separate, came forward as a separate item, was also referred to the APC and supported. But I did want to make you aware. So what we staff did when we reviewed the bylaws changes that were made in Courtenay Comox and the Comox Valley Regional District, we kind of had a slightly different approach, yet used some of what they did in the what they're doing in the other jurisdictions. So the reason we added not just water bottling, but beverage bottling, water and beverage bottling, which is actually mirrors what the CVRD did, is that if the rationale is to protect groundwater, then whatever, if you're drawing excessive amounts of groundwater is a concern, then anything that also uses a large amount of water, whether it's just pure or purified water or unpurified water, or whether it's water used in beverages, would raise the same concern. So that was why we went, why that amendment is proposed in here in the zoning bylaw update. However, I'd like to draw your attention to the possibility that there may be plants within the Bevan industrial area that want to have beverage bottling. So if you do not agree with restricting that, then you could ask to amend this, the amendment bylaw to take that beverage bottling out and just restrict water bottling. This could potentially affect the proposed yogurt plant if they wish to produce a yogurt drink in the future, or a kombucha manufacturer, or a Coca-Cola plant, anything that uses water. So then the other thing that I want to draw your attention to is, the urban beekeeping. We made that amendment, which allows just rooftop beekeeping in the commercial area along Dunsmuir, not backyard beekeeping because of higher public use in the commercial area. We felt that having bees at the level of with the sidewalks would create potential for conflict. So it is really for rooftop beekeeping, and that, and then we reviewed beekeeping in other areas and realized it's not identified as part of an agricultural use and probably should be for clarity. So that was added as well. So that's the other sort of biggish change, which is not just a housekeeping item. Yes, we could not go with the APC recommendation to increase the required playing area for children for home occupations, for childcare, and that's because this is regulated by the province. So they have a fairly small minimum area of usable space for outdoor activity space, and the rationale there by the province is that when you apply for a license, you have to program. You can provide a program that gets children outside by doing activities that get them out of the house and not actually just in the backyard, but go visit a park or something. So we had to keep that. I think that's kind of the big ones. But yeah, I'm welcome any questions if you have.
Councillor Kettler?
Thanks. Yeah, I do. And you already touched on it a bit on page 60, the accessory dwelling units being located in the front yard. Mm-hmm. And I know we discussed it in council before. And I just feel that ADUs in the backyard and as a laneway house is quite different from ADUs in the front yard as far as changing the character of a neighborhood. And I think there would be more conflict with surrounding neighbors if we were permit them in the front yard the same way as we do in the backyard. You know, they're permitted now, but of course they have to come to us for a variance, and I know that's an extra step for them and an extra cost for the landowner. But I feel like it's a good step that we have more public input that way, and a little bit more control over the changes to the character of the neighborhood. I'm just not sure what that would look like if we just encouraged everyone to put ADUs in their front yard. And it's tough because of course, you know, we all want more housing, and densification is the way we're going, but you know, we're also supposed to be doing it responsibly and with the character of our neighborhoods in mind as well. So I personally don't support encouraging the ADUs in the front. I think the system we have of the landowner applying for a variance is justified.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I hear those concerns, but I wonder, you know, a lot of homes have their garage fronting right in the front yard. And that to me is not nearly as welcoming or characterizing of a neighborhood than having an actual home in the front yard. I don't think allowing them is encouraging them necessarily, because most people's front yards don't have the room to have an ADU in them. And should they have the room, I think it actually enhances the quality of the neighborhood to have the homes closer to the road than further back. When you're closer to the road, you interact with your neighbors more. You are safer because you are more seen. It just builds a better, healthier neighborhood. So I think that allowing ADUs in the front yard where there is space for them with the same requirements for frontage and side lot allocations, I think would be great.
Councillor Sullivan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I support what Councillor Kettler is saying as well. I don't find it to be too much of an extra step. I hear what Councillor Brown's saying also, and I agree with her as well. But I think just on the safe side for the front yards, that I don't think I wouldn't mind if they had to come and ask for the variance, because just an open blanket allowance for that might not be what we're looking for in certain properties. So yeah.
Councillor Brown, you wanted to speak again?
Yeah, so should someone want to put an ADU in their front yard, they would have to apply for a development permit, and that would come to us? Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, regardless where you want to place your accessory dwelling unit in the R1A zone, right? You still have to get a R1A DP for that. Yeah.
So they would come to council regardless of whether or not it was a variance.
Yeah, that's right. It's just you wouldn't have the option to turn it down as you do a variance. It's just if they meet all the development permit requirements of the infill DP, then they get the permit.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I think the reason we developed the infill DP was to create more rental accommodation in the village, and if the ADU fits in the front yard, that's great.
I agree with Councillor Kettler and Councillor Sullivan. I was thinking that this would be on the larger lots in the village, and I think they need to come to council and ask for a variance. I really do. I think it could make a total difference in that community area, and I'd like it to come forward to council for individual decisions. Councillor Sproul, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I've listened to both sides of the argument, and I do agree that it might not always be suitable to put the ADUs in the front yard. So I would prefer to see each one on an individual basis. And yeah.
So Karen, what would the next process be for that?
So as part of your resolution, depending if there's other changes that we still want to discuss, as part of your resolution, you can give it first reading with a further amendment to take out the, to leave in the prohibition against ADUs in the front yard. Yes.
Okay, now that we're on ADUs, I would like to bring something up, and that's the issue of about when a person applies to have an ADU on their property, that it has to be the owner has to live on the property of the properties, because what's happening is they're turning into neighborhoods where everybody is transient, and some of them are turned into Airbnbs. And so there's no security there with the rest of the neighbors. And it's popping up now on different areas of neighborhoods where there's no legal person that has the legal property in their name. They're all rented out. And that's causing concerns, not only here, but in other parts of the country. It's happening also. And I've had quite a few emails with residents that are very concerned of losing their neighborhood by having people constantly in and out in Airbnbs. Yes, Councillor Brown?
So would that be something we added to the bylaw around ADUs, or is that something, because I know we've talked about this in the context of vacation rentals, and I think it's more appropriate to limit those vacation rentals rather than all ADUs, because some ADUs are not vacation rentals and we don't want to limit those.
Yes, I keep on asking where this comes up at, and I'm getting different answers. So I need an answer of where would this fit in and how do we do it?
Well, it sounds like the concern is mostly around vacation rentals. So if it's not owner occupied, and then both the ADU and the main dwelling are rented out on a temporary basis, short-term rentals for vacation rentals. We have a resolution to bring back the vacation rental report once the housing needs assessment is done. I'm expecting that for the June 22nd council meeting, the final report from the consultants. And we'll take another look at the vacation rental report. I'm not sure if I can do it for the same meeting or it'll be the following, but not too long after for sure. So we did have to check into this, and I recently also attended a webinar actually. Well, this legal issue did come up, the distinction between use and user. So we can regulate the use of a property. It's much less clear whether we can regulate the user. So meaning whether we can actually regulate whether it's owner occupied or not. I know that some jurisdictions are doing that. So it's become into question. So the village is actually seeking some legal advice so that we can come back and let you know what our options are.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, moving along, I'm sure there's other members of council that have questions. It's a big report.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Councillor Kettler, were you finished with yours, or were you going to continue?
I do have another question, but it's on a different page. I can let other members go ahead.
Okay, Councillor Brown?
So number 30, which is on, I don't know, it's on page 62. Nope, it's on page 63. Nope, it's on page 64. There it is. I just want to make sure that this is not going to impact the operation of farmers markets. So I know there's another place in the bylaw that speaks to farmers markets, and that bylaw states that farmers markets include food vendors or mobile vendors. But then we're saying here that we can't have, that mobile vendors can't locate in front of businesses. So they seem to be in contradiction.
Mhm. So this is our existing, we're not really changing what's existing in the zoning bylaw here. We just clarifying it because the heading just said retail mobile food vending. It was a little bit confusing, but it doesn't actually change how we deal with farmers markets. But you know what? I need to actually look at that more closely. So I hadn't made that connection. I don't know if I can throw open the zoning bylaw now, or we haven't treated this as such. So farmers market have been permitted.
So, I mean, it's possible that we could maybe add it into here with the exception of farmers markets, just to clarify. I don't know. But the other thing is that 30 meters, like that's a really long way. And our downtown core is very small. So we're effectively pushing, any entrepreneurial new food vendor who wants to develop their business in a food cart situation outside of the downtown core. I don't actually, I didn't walk like how far 30 meters is, but it seems like a long way in a tight downtown.
Yeah, I believe I wasn't here at the time. Actually, mind you, I did eat the ice cream. So I wasn't working for the village, but I ate the ice cream. But the ice cream truck was located, this was a couple summers ago, I believe, just by the gas station, to be sufficiently away from existing vendors, existing restaurants. There was issues though potentially with the food mart across the street. It is actually on my list for round 2 of zoning bylaw updates. It's a bit more substantial to look at the whole mobile vending regulations. There's always 2 sides to this. For the businesses that pay commercial taxes and have businesses, they're concerned that the mobile vendors take away their business. Hence, a lot of jurisdictions do restrict them somewhat and requiring them to be located a certain distance away from a commercial business that might be selling the same or a similar product or generally selling food. So yeah, it's definitely on the list to look at the whole policy more carefully and understand both sides of the argument, namely the incubating type businesses that want to give something new a try, and then the existing businesses that have a property and paid property tax on their business. So I think the amendment here is really just clarifies, because it was confusing. The title said retail. It was confusing between retail and food, but then the definition included retail. So in the end, what this change does is make sure both are treated the same at the moment. It doesn't mean we don't need to review the regulation per se. So.
Okay, so maybe can we just look into the potential conflict with farmers markets and leave the 30 meters for a later time, and possibly with a conversation with our downtown business association, so that they can have some input to that food cart bylaw?
Yeah, I agree. Any sort of regulations that affect individuals or businesses potentially quite a bit, we don't really know. I totally agree. We should be consulting with them and getting some input on different proposals or options with respect to this. So, yeah, what you could do is with the farmers market and you could not give this bylaw first reading, and maybe the corporate officer can correct me here if I'm wrong. but just state the things that you want changed or amended for now, and then we bring it back. And maybe when we bring it back, we're ready to bring it back for first and second reading at a public hearing if we have been able to figure out that part, or we just bring it back for first reading again. So you don't have to give it first reading at this meeting. But Rachel, if that's not correct, she's the bylaw expert, then please let us know.
I think if there's a fair amount of changes and discussion about the bylaw, I think just bringing it back for first reading would probably be the best option and give some time for a more thorough review, for sure.
Yeah.
And remember, after the public hearing, you have the opportunity to change things even further. If you get more input from the residents or the businesses in the community, they have the opportunity to come to the public hearing and voice their concerns, and we can still change it at that point. Yes?
So I have two that sort of follow that same. Should I go ahead, or do we want to go on to somebody else?
We'll give somebody else another time and come back to you. Okay.
Okay.
Councillor Sproul, did you have any questions? No? Okay. Councillor Sullivan, do you have any? Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I also was wondering about just now about if the 30 meters would apply if we're doing things like market days or something like that. Does that fall into that category? Is that an exception? And then the other thing about reviewing the zoning bylaws is it's not a full review right now. It's just an update and housekeeping is my understanding. So we don't really want to make any significant changes today or during this update because we haven't done the public consultation that a significant change would require, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just have one more on page 70. I just had a question about 49. Why we're including the number of units in that seniors dwelling? Because I don't recall seeing number of units in the zoning bylaw for other development agreements.
Yes, this item is also for clarity. So in the comprehensive development agreement, it identifies how many units, the maximum number of units for seniors housing. So that the zoning bylaw identifies for all the other uses, it identifies the number of units, but not for seniors. So it's really to be consistent with the comprehensive development agreement. Because there's then there could be a confusion in interpretation whether the 143 units are part of the multifamily number of multifamily units or if they're additional the seniors housing. So in the CDA there is a separate number for the seniors housing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about putting that in if that changes, because we're, there's many phases yet to come. The seniors phase hasn't been decided on yet, so I wouldn't want to have to come back and change it, So I'm just wondering about putting something like that in at this point when we don't know that will be the number of units.
Yeah, so that is the maximum number of units. They could construct less. Yeah, it really aligns it with the comprehensive development agreement. So if a developer wishes to have more seniors housing units dedicated for seniors housing, 55 plus, they would have to ask for an amendment to the comprehensive development agreement. And then because under certain conditions, the current amendment that's in progress is not changing any density or use. But once you change density or use, he would have to apply for rezoning anyways. So that would be a requirement. As soon as you change use or density, you have to apply for to rezone, to change the zone. So what we're proposing doesn't change. It really just reflects what's in the CDA. It doesn't change what's really permitted under the CDA. It just clarifies the maximum number of units. I mean, not having it there, yeah, it's for clarity. That's all. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry, I kind of got sidetracked. Perhaps did that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I guess as long as it stays under that maximum, then we won't have to come back and change the zoning bylaw. But
yes. So regardless, if he wants to go over 143 units, even if we don't add this to the zoning bylaw now, he would have to do a CDA amendment, and we would treat this like a rezoning because it changes the use and the density.
okay.
So he would have to go through public hearing. Like for certain CDA amendments, he doesn't have to do a public hearing because it doesn't change the use or density. But for anything that does, he would have to do a public hearing. So it's like a rezoning at that point.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kettler. That was one of my questions too. So the next one is number 32, the roadside stand. Wait, no, that's the wrong number. Yeah, no, I'm looking at 32, sorry, finding it. Okay. So it says, so the roadside stand is essentially a market garden tool facilitating the sale of farm grown or products grown on the property. But I just want to make sure that it's not just, so there's agriculture and horticultural products or anything value added or processed potentially could also be sold in a roadside stand if it was grown on that property.
Yes. Let's see. I think there's another line that refers to value added. I'm gonna have to go.
I think that's in the market
bylaw,
which is number 35. And it's adding honey and bee products to fruits, vegetables, and edible plants. So again, it doesn't allow for that, the value added or processing. So if someone grew berries and wanted to do jam or something like that, is that not allowed?
Okay, let's just have a quick.
And is that actually changing, like, is that too much content change, or is that, what is that?
Right. Right, and the market gardens, so we do permit that. I think I wasn't here when the zoning bylaw was created, but my interpretation of it is that there was an effort to make a distinction between market gardens, which are permitted in the VCMU 1 zone in the commercial core, and urban agriculture. So the intent was not to bring a commercial use to where urban agriculture is permitted, which is on some of the residential lots outside of the downtown core. So the value added products, that's right. Currently, it's only the sale would only then be permitted in the zone that permits market gardens, which is just a commercial zone. So those two are very similar. I looked at them and tried to understand what the intent was. And so my interpretation is market gardens are slightly different. They allow a little bit more of a commercial use and sale of the products than urban agriculture. And I would guess that is because urban agriculture is permitted in residential zones, and the commercial uses or more full-on commercial uses, the intent would be that that's then really focused around the commercial core. So if you're keeping backyard hens in your on your private lot, you can sell them, but you can't sell other products that have value added. You can't sell apple cake made with the eggs or something. But I believe I would think that was intentional, that distinction, because you're looking at a residential zone versus a commercial zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to allow people to have farm stands, that the intent would be to encourage people to grow more food and increase food security in the village. And so not everything can be eaten immediately after it's picked, and so allowing some form of processing, of course, alongside with island health regulations, would be really increasing our food security in Cumberland. So I'm not sure whether this is the place to do that or whether that's for another time. How do I?
Well, I'm wondering if this is really part of the OCP discussion. So, because it's a land use designation issue, first of all. So, what do we want to permit in the residential zones? When we're reviewing as part of the OCP review, do we want to broaden urban or put increased focus on urban agriculture and also value-added products? So I would see it fit quite well as part of the OCP review.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else? So we need a motion then?
I'm sorry, I have one more. So number 53 is adding apartment to VCMU1, Village Core Commercial Mixed Use Zone, and permitting it to be located to the rear of the building, except that apartments are defined now as multi-story, et cetera, the definition of apartment. And so I think I wonder if we should be adding accessory building or something where we can actually allow people to use long-term rentals in existing buildings that are being used like that in the downtown core.
Okay. I didn't quite follow you. Do you mind repeating that? So you say what you suggested?
So right now there are buildings to the rear of commercial buildings in the downtown core that are being used as residential. And by allowing apartment under principal use and allowing those apartments to be located to the rear of the building that contains the principal use, it would seem to me that we are moving towards grandfathering those buildings and allowing people to continue to live there.
Okay.
And so I'm checking to make sure that that is actually going to serve that function.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how this is perhaps confusing. So, or maybe not. It adds actually confusion a bit, because you're correct. The definition of apartment is that it's above a residential or commercial unit. In the mixed use zone, the apartment would be above. Are we saying it could be behind to the rear of the building that contains the principal use? Okay, so I think actually, now that I read it again, what this means is you can have an apartment, you may have an apartment building where you have 3 stories of apartments above the commercial use, but you could potentially also have a unit in the back of the building behind the commercial use. But that's possibly not of the building that contains the principal use. Okay. So yeah, so it would have to be in the same building as the commercial use.
We
So
have that
even if
existing
you add a
now.
unit behind your commercial use on the same floor, you could potentially add one, but it would have to be in the same building. So people who now currently have a small dwelling, say in the back of their property, in that zone, they grandfathered. Well, they are legal non-conforming, and they can continue to do that until such time as that use ceases, right, for a certain period of time.
Right.
And then they lose that legal nonconformity. So that's what this would do. So anyone who's now has a separate building, but that's already the case actually too, because it's not an apartment. We don't have single family as a use, permitted use in the VCMU1 zone. So any single family dwellings in the VCMU1 zone is currently legal non-conforming.
Okay.
So I did look, this was discussed a little, not this specific item was discussed at the APC, but the definition of apartment was, and the APC members did also, yes, we did also discuss that there is a whole bunch of other ways people live in the downtown core. Yes, for sure, there's some small buildings in the view that serve as residences or are being rented out. So they were a little bit concerned about whether the apartment that would be unnecessarily restrictive. Then if these folks want to renovate or change, well, they could renovate within the existing footprint, but if they want to update the building or enlarge it, that wouldn't be permitted. And that's correct. They would have to apply for rezoning to add a single residential use for that particular property. But it does actually reflect the OCP. So on the OCP right now, the dwellings in the VCMU1 zone, the land use designation in the OCP says mixed use in the core commercial zone and multifamily, so it doesn't actually have single family as a use. So if you want to, so I assume when the last OCP was done, there was an intent to densify the downtown core, and over time, with a zoning bylaw like this, that it promotes that happening, and anything else is legal non-conforming. So if we want to change that, it probably is also an OCP discussion, really, because then we are out of line with the OCP, so we can't change that without also changing the OCP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm done. Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
Councillor Sproul, did you have your hand up?
Oh, I was just saying, referring the multi-family, mixed-use zone in the new builds. Maybe this isn't to do with that. On the main street of single occupancy dwellings. Of course, we have commercial on the front down below, but we tell the developer they have to put in high ceilings in the back unit of the building so that it could become commercial one day. It can be rental to begin, residential, and then commercial later to be ready, commercial ready.
Yeah, that's correct. The ground floor ceiling heights are higher than the other ceiling, the ceiling heights for residential units, and that was really a character thing for the downtown core. The commercial ceiling heights are fairly high. The heritage alteration permit that we had come forward for the building next to the liquor store, they did request to vary that height by, I think it was about a foot and a little bit. So that option is still there. They could seek to vary that to reduce the overall building height if they wish, and then that would be part of the heritage alteration permit. request. So yeah, right now the ceiling heights are higher on the first floor, whether it's commercial or residential.
Okay. Everybody got their questions answered now? Somebody like to make a motion?
Did we decide that we were coming back with another first reading, or do we just make the motion with the, because we haven't clarified the temporary markets question?
I have a question for staff then. Do we need to leave it and bring it back next council meeting with those changes? Or
Well,
can we? Go ahead.
Yeah, to the mayor and council. So I believe it would be helpful for us if the council could vote on whether you wish to change the ADU, whether you wish to take it out, that an ADU be permitted in the front yard. Right now, the draft amendment bylaw, the amendment bylaws presented has in it that the ADUs be permitted in the front yard.
Okay.
So we would basically be suggesting take out the line that says that ADUs not be permitted in the front yard. So a resolution, I think, is necessary because I heard different views on that. So to make sure that we're all on the same page, request that the amendment to ADUs not being permitted in the front, that ADUs be permitted in the front yard be taken out. And then the other item is more of a just check into it, I believe, with the farmers market, confirm that the section that deals with mobile vending not conflict with farmers markets.
Okay, Councillor Kettler, would you like, or Councillor Sullivan, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we remove the front yard allowance of the ADUs.
Seconder?
Or the
Councillor Kettler?
requirement for them to come back.
Yes, understood. Okay, any other? Sorry, Councillor Kettler?
So the motion is that we keep the, that ADUs shall not be located in the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
The existing wording.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you made that motion, Councillor Sullivan? Is that what
Yes.
you were doing? Okay.
Yeah, trying to.
Seconder? Seconder? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brown? Opposed?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, carried. Okay. Now the next step is to,
Are we giving first reading then?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, then I'll move the council give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1133/2020.
seconder, Councillor Brown? All in favor? Carried. Okay, that looked a little overwhelming when you read the 200 plus pages, but congratulations, it didn't take that long. Next.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a monster. Yes, we all went cross-eyed reviewing and making sure everything lined up. So my understanding is that I will still check and confirm that farmers markets are not impacted by the changes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, we have no consent calendar, no new business, no notice motions and announcements, but we do have question period. So please send your questions by email at info@cumberland.ca and using subject line question period. And your questions will be read out. No comments, please. And we will wait to see if we get any questions.
We did have one question earlier about the, it was regarding the development permit for the Waste Management Center. And the question was about the, whether the materials used in the structure would be part of the building permit stage, and whether a metal structure would be required.
Is Clayton, can you answer that, or is Karen on?
Your worship, let me just confirm here. I believe I believe that what we've been advised is the same material is being used for the roof as a siding. So it is a metal sided building based on what was proposed within the application there. So it's a prefabricated building, which typically is a metal sided building, but the actual material, I'm not sure. We'd have to get back on the actual detail of what gauge it is and so forth. I don't know that. It's a prefabricated building. Typically those are the metal buildings.
Yeah. Yes, Councillor Kettler?
And I think it would be regulated because it's a dangerous good, like flammable, that it would be regulated by the province for under municipal waste regulation. So I'm not sure that, I think they already have to meet some kind of standard in that way that we wouldn't necessarily have to make sure that it wasn't flammable at the municipal government level.
Yeah, and if I may add to this, so this was for development permits, right? The wildfire and industrial, and they still have to apply for building permits. So that's next, and then they have to meet the building permit, the BC building code. So the building inspector will look at that and make sure the code is met.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else, Rachel?
Nope.
No,
I have no more questions.
Okay, next we have closed session.
I'll move that council close the meeting to the public pursuant to section 90 of the community charter to consider the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, and the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Next page.
Oh, sorry. Oh, and discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures, and progress reports for the purposes of preparing an annual report under section 98 annual municipal report.
Seconder, Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. No release of closed session resolutions and motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, Councillor Sproul, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.